I just played the episode 5 of Game of Thrones by Telltale, and I thought, there are plenty of things that I could talk about in relation to gaming, and there are plenty of things that I could talk about in relation to Gamergate, but I'm going to take a moment here and just address the fact that this is kind of in relation to gaming and Gamergate, because I think that when you talk to so many social justice warrior types or people that insist that gaming needs to grow up and that they point to narrative games as being somewhat an example of where gaming needs to go. I think that episode 5 of Game of Thrones by Telltale illustrates exactly why that notion is ridiculous. And it's because despite the fact that you are going to see 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s for this episode, it's just bad. It is the worst episode in the entire series of this bad Telltale game. It's few and far between that you find a gamer that gives a shit about Telltale, let alone, likes it too. I've met plenty of people that have given Telltale games a chance and don't like it. They don't like their games. It's a little bit amazing to me that people play these games and, they're getting 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s and shit, when if these are any example of what, social justice warrior types want for gaming, then it's no wonder why Telltale is what it is and fucking Grand Theft Auto is what it is. Because when you are a company in which all you produce are narrative games, these interactive fucking movies, to where the writing is just atrocious, the dialogue is just monotonous, just shit, and the pacing is just, in every instance, terrible. Just, there is not an instance where the pacing is not just fucking deplorable, just so easily distinguishable in being awful. And that's supposed to be your strong suit, but you fail at it time and time again. It's so amazing that the argument that is being made that this is what needs to be a staple in gaming, when they can't perform the one thing they need to do in order to justify their argument. If Telltale actually made a decent fucking game, this would be the argument. This would be the shining example. Like, here you go, guys. This is why gaming needs to change. This is why gaming needs to grow up and mature. It's because Telltale games are great. Narrative games are great. You don't need action. You don't need fucking artistic skill. You don't need all these things, these visual styles, this atmosphere that makes all these other games great. What you need is narrative. Well, fine. Fucking make a game that actually has a decent fucking narrative. For fuck's sake. Game of Thrones by Telltale is the worst fucking game that they've produced in years. And it is getting fucking lauded. Every single episode has been garbage. The most recent has been the worst. And people are still acting as though it's great. When it's like, no, I'm a Telltale fan. I like narrative games, and this is shit. When you actually have an example of a game that can actually be put forth as an example of why gaming needs to grow up and why narrative games are somehow justified, when the only thing that justifies their existence, the narrative, that one fucking thing in the game is still fucking shit. I mean, how are you supposed to persuade any fucking gamer to back you? How? What's worse about Telltale is the fact that one of the only examples they had to being, where their narrative games were better than the original, like, action-based games was Tales from the Borderlands. It was the only fucking game that they had produced where that game was better than the original Borderlands, in my opinion. The first episode of Tales from the Borderlands was excellent. The very next episode was still solid, but was easily distinguishable as worse than the first. And then now this most recent episode. It is so unbelievable that you can take something that works and then fuck it up so unbelievably. Kill off characters that had relevance to the fucking game, that were interesting. Bring in fucking characters that don't matter, that are not interesting, that have terrible fucking dialogue. And And what happens? You have good pacing, solid pacing in the first game. The first thing that comes to mind is a fucking train just going, just fucking, the pacing comes to a grinding fucking halt. You fuck up the narrative, you fuck up the dialogue, you fuck up the humor, and you ruin the fucking game. And this is supposed to be the shining example. This is supposed to be the one exception for Telltale, where they actually can produce a good series, and they're fucking it up. How many other games do I need to point to that are fuck-ups, that fail to be solid narrative games? Dreamfall Chapters, which is fucking social justice as fuck from top to bottom. The guy that runs the company is a social justice warrior. Bad fucking game. Bad fucking narrative. Shitty fucking pacing. Boring fucking story. Bad characters, shit dialogue, everything. Everything that should be good about the game is not good. It has a little bit of atmosphere, but otherwise is shit. Life is Strange. The game that's being touted, lauded, given accolades all over the fucking place. Not good. It's getting progressively better with every episode. I'll agree to that. At least you couldn't get worse, and you're getting better. But this is not any example as to what games should be. I mean, for fuck's sake, when Mass Effect 2, despite its flaws, has a better narrative than your game, and you're a narrative game. For fuck's sake, what is happening? You're hiring the worst writers in the industry thinking that they're going to turn this fucking turd into gold? I mean, how many hacks can you find and hire on? So this is what my argument is for those of you listening to me right now. I want those of you that are like me and are willing to defend narrative games to some extent, that do understand that when people talk about the industry growing up and all this shit, they're talking about narrative. They're talking about the writing capacity for games. What games are willing to take on, despite the fact that they have this contradictory nature of, well, you can't talk about certain things. I mean, for fuck's sake, the reason why I brought up visual novels in the previous video that I did, people didn't understand this, was visual novel games can be very complicated. They can have very complex narratives. They can deal with some very serious issues. Drug addiction, rape, all sorts of fucking things. They can deal with these issues seriously. Homelessness, there have been so many games that I've played that have dealt with very serious issues that are Japanese visual novels. And I'm just saying, for those of you that, you see yourselves as the future of the industry, these fucking hack writers that are social justice as fuck, I'm asking you, name me a fucking game. Name me a fucking game that is a narrative game that does not have glaring fucking issues with pacing, with writing capacity, with the depth of the story, with continuity in the fucking story, which is another glaring issue with Game of Thrones from Telltale, among other games. Glaring fucking continuity issues. Give me a fucking example that exists of a narrative game that doesn't have a million fucking flaws. If you can come up with an example, I'd be glad to hear it.